Take a look at this picture of the United States Supreme Court. Analyze their faces very closely. Okay, now tell me which justices are Democrat and which ones are Republican. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but none of them are. Unlike government officials, justices aren't elected directly by the people. They're nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Now, this would be a hella easy process if the Senate agreed with the Supreme Court nomination, but as we saw with the nomination of Neil Gorsuch, the confirmation process turned out to be a bumpy ass road. You see, the Senate has these things called parliamentary procedures. Think of them as a theoretical cane that senators can pull out of their desks and beat members of the opposite party over the head with. One of these canes is called a filibuster. Let me explain how and why they're used. In order to successfully confirm a Supreme Court nominee, the Senate has to debate the nomination, end the debate, then vote. A filibuster happens when the debates don't end. Whoever wants to delay the nomination could literally just keep talking. Supreme Court nominees are usually confirmed with a simple majority of 51 votes, but to end a filibuster takes 60 votes. And with the way the Senate is shaped right now, you could see how getting those extra 9 votes could be difficult. And this doesn't just happen with Supreme Court nominees. Filibusters can happen for all sorts of issues, and congressmen can basically do whatever the fuck they want during the time they refuse to yield the floor.
A work in progress.
That Sam I am, that Sam I am. I do not like that Sam I am. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them, Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham.
In the case of Neil Gorsuch's nomination in 2017, all they needed was for 41 out of the 47 Democrats in the Senate to keep the filibuster going. This plan was actually working, up until the Republicans evoked another parliamentary procedure called the nuclear option. The Republicans got so pissed off at the filibuster that they actually voted to change the rules altogether, setting new precedent that eliminates the need for 60 votes to bring a Supreme Court nomination debate to an end.
Do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Neil M. Gorsuch of Colorado to be an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, signed by 17 senators as follows.
I ask consent the reading of the names be dispensed with.
Without objection.
The reason this is called the nuclear option is because the law has essentially been changed, meaning that if the next president to nominate a Supreme Court justice is a Democrat, the Republicans will not be able to pull off a successful filibuster unless they maintain a majority. It's also called the nuclear option because it just shits all over healthy public debate in the Senate. Instead of trying to broker a compromise, the nuclear option eliminates the opposition's party's chance to do so. Since this option was evoked during the Gorsuch hearings, this pretty much assures that the president's newest nominee, Brett Kavanaugh, will be confirmed with no bumpy-ass roads at all. But this isn't stopping Senate Democrats from trying to block his nomination anyway. Listen to what Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's strategy is.
Republicans control the majority. Is there anything you can do to stop this nomination?
Yes. Well, President Trump, with the nomination of Judge Kavanaugh, has fulfilled or is fulfilling 2 of his campaign promises. First, to undo women's reproductive freedom. Second, to undo ACA. And so I will oppose him with everything I've got.
Schumer goes on to talk about how he's going to block Kavanaugh's confirmation, but ultimately he doesn't present any real game plan on how to do it. And Kamala Harris, the senator from California and a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, explains why Brett Kavanaugh's nomination would put women's reproductive health rights at risk in red states.
The concern I have about his appointment and him being on the United States Supreme Court is that we already know that there are probably 20 states that are prepared and have been in the process of restricting a woman's right to make that decision in terms of giving her meaningful access to not only reproductive health care, but also to an abortion. And my concern is that those cases will then be appealed up to the United States Supreme Court, and he, being the swing vote on that court, will consistently uphold these restrictions on a woman's meaningful access to reproductive care, and in effect then can overturn Roe v. Wade without explicitly overturning Roe v. Wade.
It's pretty obvious why Democrats want to block Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation. If he makes it on the Supreme Court, the court will have a conservative majority, and there will be a greater chance of abortion being overturned at the state level. Like I said before, There are no Democrats or Republicans on the court, but that doesn't mean they don't have a track record of making decisions in past cases that would be considered liberal and conservative. When it comes to constitutional law, which the justices interpret, a conservative judge would usually follow the Constitution directly, word for word, and a liberal judge tends to consider past precedent and the effect a decision might have. And because of these obvious track records that all justices have, I believe it's ridiculous that Supreme Court nominees refuse to answer hypothetical questions posed by senators during confirmation hearings. Just watch these exchanges between disgraced Senator Al Franken and then nominee Neil Gorsuch.
How do you think Merrick Garland was treated by the Republicans?
Senator, since I became a judge 10 years ago, I have a canon of ethics that precludes me from getting involved in any way, shape, or form in politics.
How did you feel about the right to marry being put to a popular vote?
Senator, I don't recall any involvement in that issue during that campaign. I remember going to Ohio.
Were you aware of that issue at all?
Oh, certainly I was aware of it.
And how'd you feel about it?
Senator, my personal views, any revelation of my personal views about this matter would indicate to people how I might rule as a judge, mistakenly.
How have your views of marriage equality changed, if at all, since the 2004 election?
Senator, my personal views.
Okay, can I move on to something else
Well, if I
then?
might
Thank
finish-
you.
if
I
I
understand.
finish-
You've given a version of this answer before, so I understand.
And where my opinions have been unanimous 97% of the time, Senator. I've been in the
I
majority
understand, and
99%.
again, you've given many times that answer, so if you'll indulge me.
Ultimately, Brett Kavanaugh will more than likely be confirmed before the November midterm elections, and unless Senate Democrats can come up with a concrete plan to halt the nomination, the only way they could beat the Senate majority is with an actual cane.